Hi guys, in this tutorial we'll look at how to use Firebase Auth with Vue.js and set up a router and also use Vuex. And we'll set up the router in such a way that we'll be only logged in user can see certain routes and other will not be able to do that. So let's start. So in order to create a new Vue project, we need Vue CLI. Okay, so basically we can install Vue CLI using this command. It will install the Vue CLI globally on your computer. I prefer this because you'll use this Vue command very often. Okay, so just install this CLI and you can see as I have installed, when I type Vue -- version, it gives me 4.2.3. Okay, so let's go ahead and create our Vue project. So Vue create and the name of the project. For this project I'll use Vuefs FB. So this Vue CLI will take me through the creation step one by one. For that we need to manually select features. Okay, so it will ask me a set of questions which I need to answer for which features I need to enable. Okay, so we will enable TypeScript, we'll leave out progressive web apps, we'll add router, we'll add Vuex, we'll add CSS preprocessor, we'll leave unit testing and E2E testing. The next question asks me, do you want to use class style component syntax? I would say yes. Babel alongside TypeScript, yes. History mode for router, yes. And we'll pick SAS as a preprocessor and use ESLint plus prettier for linting and formatting. And we'll allow lint unsafe. This config asks me where I want to put my config files. I'll use in dedicated config files rather than putting them all together in a package.json. And I'll say no for this. So this will go ahead and create a Vue project for me. Install the dependencies. Okay, now we'll cd into Vue FB, and as you can see it has created a Git repository as well. So I will open this folder in code. I'll be using VS Code. You can use your personal choice of editor. So we'll go through this folder structure once. So we have a public folder which will serve our static content. Then we have our source folder, asset components, router, store, view, app.vue, main.ts. And then we have a couple of config files which are linting config and the Babel config as well. And we have ts config also. So let's see how can we start our development server. To start our development server, we should write npm run serve. So this is a script added in our package.json file to run our development server. So this is booting up our development server, and it says app running on local network, which is localhost 8080. So we'll control click and open it up. So now you can see our Vue project running. So this is the default template which Vue provides, okay, with routing setup already. So you can see we have home and about route, and these are few links for the plugins and few resources as well. So what we'll do is get rid of these files. Okay, so let's delete component, and in views we'll remove home component, home.view. We have removed whatever is unnecessary. Let's set it up for our use case. So I'll rename this about.view to login.view, and change this to login, and we'll create another view which is register. Sorry, I forgot to add the extension. Let's rename it and copy the contents from login.view to register. Let's call it register. Okay, and now we can see our development server is showing some errors. So let's fix that first. We need to fix the router basically. So we'll rename this to login. So I'm assuming that login would be my default route or the root route. Okay, and so this file I'll import view login.view and then change the route. So let's name the route to login. The component which we are using is login. And since we don't have about, we'll get rid of about and add register. Name it register. Okay, and then we'll change it to register as well, and this to register. Okay, so now we can see both the routes, home and about. So let's see if it is working or not. Okay, so about is not working, so we'll remove about. So that is in app Vue.js. So we'll remove all this styling, default styling, and then remove on the links and leave the router view only. Let's keep div element with ID as of now. And now you can see the root is login, and when we do register, it's taking me to the register page. So basically we have set up the router, and now our routes are working, login and register. So now guys, I'll add some form elements to login and register. For that, I'll add BUFI, which is a UI library for Vue. So it's BUFI. So as you can see, this is lightweight UI components for Vue.js based on Bulma. So I'll use. So as you can see, Vuefi is a lightweight UI component for Vue.js based on Bulma. So let's add it. So one way is to add this via npm, but we'll not go that route. Instead, we'll use Vue. So let's use the Vue CLI and then add it using Vue add Vuefi. So this will go ahead and add Vuefi in our project. Meanwhile, we can look into the documentation. So now it's asking me to add Vuefi styles. I'll use Sass for it. And then it asks me, do you want to include material design icons? I would say yes. And I'll not include the font awesome icons. Okay. So let's start coding the form elements. So for that, go to get started and let's look at the documentation, how it should be done. We'll go to form controls and then look at input field. Okay, I think we need username and a password for login, and I think same for register as well. So let's create the first. So let's create the login page first. So we'll use this B field with label and an input for an email. So let's go ahead and add it. So let's create a container first, and so it will be form container. Let's call it form controller or form. Okay, and then add these fields. Okay, so we'll add B field and add label to it. And let's call it email. And then we need to add an input, which is B input. So let's see what is rendered. So now we can see a form element has been rendered, but we cannot see the label. I think I misspelled it. Sorry for that. So we can see the the label here and the form element, the input field. Okay, so let's try to self-enclose it as okay, and add type as email. Okay, and then we need to add another field. Let's copy paste this and call it password. So let's see what we have. Okay, so I think we have two fields. One is email and password, and then we need another button. So let's use button and say login. As you can see, button has not been styled yet, so let's add a style to it. to add a style, let's go to the documentation for buttons, and you can see there's a bunch of buttons which we can use. So for this, I'll use this primary button. Okay, so let's go ahead and add a B button. Let's change the button to B button and see what happens. Okay, we'll get rid of this documentation, and we have a button here, and we can use this button to expand it. Okay, so let's add few classes here. So we'll add primary. Okay, and we'll also add expanded. Or expanded. So this will expand the button all the way. Okay, and one more thing I would like to do is change the width of this form. So for that, first we'll add a class to our main root component, which is in app view. So let's see how to do that. So what we'll do is go to documentation and look for layers and elements and go to container, and in container you can see we have few containers which we can use. Okay, so what will it do is this container is centered on desktop, so if we add a class container to an element, it will center the content inside that. So basically the default thing is desktop, so it will use the desktop width. So as you can see, on desktop it will have maximum width of 960, on widescreen it will have 1152, and on full HD it will have maximum width of 1344. So let's add the class. Let's go to container, and we've added the class as container. So now you can see when we maximize the width, we have this whole form elements are centered inside it. Okay, cool. So that's it for the app.view. Now we'll go to the login and open this form and write some style for it. Okay, so let's do a style scoped, and we'll use lang CSS. So lang is equal to CSS, and then we'll add few properties to this class. Okay, we can do dot form, and add display as flex. Okay, and now you can see that now we have changed the display type to flex, and we'll use the flex properties. Okay, so one of the flex property is flex direction. We'll use column for it. So now it has changed our form to a column format. Okay, and we'll use the grid for this form. So what you can do is go to the layout, the documentation, and then go to layouts, and then do tiles. So when you see the tiles, we'll add this property called is8, which will use 8 columns. So what we'll do is add this to the form. Now you can see is 8. And also I add tile to it. Okay, now you can see that this is 8 using 8 column, and it is a tile. So now you want to center it. To center something in a flex, we need to add few things, which is justify items, justify content to be center, and align items to center as well. So this will center our email password and login. Something weird is happening. This button is going outside the. So let's do it as 6. So we'll get rid of the tile class and just use is8. So let's try to bomb this up. Let's see what happens. Nothing is happening. Okay, so let's remove this. Okay, so I guess nothing is happening out here. Okay, so we'll just get rid of this thing and try to use the grid system. So let's use the grid system and go to column basics. So let's change this class to tile. Okay, sorry. This is form, and then we'll add another tile inside this form. So let's try to add tile component and wrap it over the form. And now you can see this is again gone to horizontal view, and if you want to change it, we need to change it to its vertical and then do is8 as well. So cool, I think our form is ready. So let's do 4. I think 4 columns would be good enough for email and password. Cool. So we have our form. So let's quickly add one more thing, which is the header. Okay, so we'll have add a hero element for it. So you can check out the hero element in the documentation, and what it says is just add a div with a class, just add a h1 with a class title. Okay, so what I'll do is go ahead and do that. So inside the form, what I'll do is I will do h1 dot title and provide the title, which is login. Now you can see there's a title with the login. So just to add to send to this thing, we'll add a padding top. Padding top has 100 pixels. So now it is looking like centered. Okay, so I think we have done with mostly the styling of the login page. Okay, so and we'll add a couple of things which Vueify gives us. One is the icon. So let's go ahead and add the icon, which is of type email. So you can see the email icon appeared here. Okay, and also let's add the password to our password field. So what we can do is quickly look up the documentation, go to input, and then look at the password documentation. In the password documentation, there is a key called password reveal, which we need to add in the input. And you can see now it has added this icon here, where we can see that show and hide password. So whenever we type a password, we can click this icon and we can see the password which we have typed. So these are some things which is provided by Vueify. Okay, so now again, so this is the component which this is the login component which we'll be using. Okay, and I'll go ahead and quickly copy this thing to register as well, and change the login to register. You can see, and in the button we need to say register. I think when we go to register, so we have changed, we'll be using the same form for registration as well. So go ahead, I think since our form is complete now, let's go ahead and start adding Firebase to our project. So now let's go ahead and add Firebase to our project. In order to add Firebase to our project, let's create a project in Firebase. So I have gone ahead and created a new Firebase project called Vuex, and then let's go to settings and go to project settings. And in project settings, you'll see your apps, and then we need to add another app, which would be our JavaScript app, a web app. So let's name this as web and call register. So this gives us a Firebase config. Now let's go ahead to our project and add Firebase to it. In order to add Firebase, let's do npm install Firebase. And you can go, and meanwhile let's look at the documentation which Firebase provides. So let's go ahead and look at how to add Firebase. Okay, cool. So what we need to do is add Firebase to our project, and let's go to our main.ts and then add Firebase. So what we'll do is import star as Firebase from Firebase, and then import auth from Firebase as well. So what is the recommended way to install to import Firebase is given here. So let's add Firebase/app and then do an import of auth, Firebase/auth. Since we'll be using only this feature, auth feature in this project, so let's not add other dependencies. So let's keep it to auth only, and then do initialize on this. So what we will do is then copy paste the config from the settings, which is this. So let's copy this and initialize. Will not be initializing analytics. Okay, we can use const here. So this will initialize the Firebase when we boot up our app. Okay, and now we want to start registering user using this Firebase. So guys, let's start the registration flow. So in order to start the registration flow, we'll head to register.vue and start the binding this input email and input password and the button. So in order to do that, let's add a data property and have an email. Initialize that to an empty string. Password, we'll initialize that to as an empty string, and we'll have a field called error, and we initialize that to null. Okay, so let's go ahead and add another property called methods, and we'll add method called sign in, or let's call it register, and let's add a console log for now, and log pressed. Let's see if, and let's bind this register with this button. Okay, so we can have one click, we click, double click, and we'll add a method here which is register. And let's see if things are working fine. Let's refresh, and when we are clicking the register, this method is getting called. So that's great, but let's bind these input elements as well. So what I'll do is bind email to vmodel email, and let's add vmodel password here. So, and let's try to log these two parameters when registered is pressed. So let's call this dot email, and then we'll call this dot password. Let's press register and see what is happening. So for now the empty text is getting logged. We'll add something in here, and then when we press register, as you can see, we are able to get the email and password. Okay, So that's cool. So what we'll do is quickly add Firebase to this register page. So we'll copy imports from main.ts. We'll import Firebase. And what we can do here is replace this register method and add Firebase dot auth dot create user with email and password. We'll pass this dot, it will take username, email and password as a parameter, and so we'll pass email here, this dot password, and then we'll do then, or let's not do then, we'll catch the errors. So in the callback we'll get error object, and we can console log error here, or let's do this dot, let's set this dot error to error dot message. So I think it's a double equal to, we'll just change it to single equal to. Okay, so now what we are doing is we are calling the Firebase method create user with email and password and passing our email and password to it, and when we will get the error, we'll set the error here. So now what we'll do is we'll add an error field in our form to display errors. So we'll go to BUFI and then go to messages, and we'll use this styling of messages to display the error message. So in order to display this error message, all you need to do is add this and and what we'll do is we'll replace the lorem ipsum text to error. But there is a problem here. So in order to display the message, we need to add a if tag. So if the error is there, only show this, otherwise don't show. So what I'll do is we'll add a if and then pass error to it, and when we see this page, now we are not getting any errors. Okay, when we click on register, you can see the error is showing up, and it is saying the email address is badly formatted. So let's so this is the error cases. Let's check for the registration, successful registration flow. What we'll do is we'll add Vue fb12@gmail.com, and we'll use this password Vue fb12. So when we click register, nothing happens. I think just because we have like successfully registered. So let's go back to our Firebase console and see if the registration is successful or not. When we head to our users tab, you can see this user has been created with Vue fb12@gmail.com. Okay, so it has successfully worked. So in order to handle the navigation, we'll probably take this up a bit later. So now head back to login page and do the login, similar thing for login as well. So most of the things here we can use. So what we'll do is we'll just copy paste the whole template to login and just replace register with login. Okay, most of the things are working. Now we need to add this script tag as well. So let's copy this script tag as well. So now when we refresh, most of the errors will go away. In order to call the login, we need to replace this to login, and let's call rather than create user email with the email and password, let's call it let's call the function sign in with email and password. So rest remains the same. So now I think we can start the login flow as well. So we can use ufb12@gmail.com and then probably enter a wrong password, and let's see if the error appears. So now you can see the error says the password is invalid or the user does not have a password. Let's go ahead and add the right password, ufb12. So nothing happens, but I guess this has successfully logged in. In order to check that, what we'll do, we'll add a then, and then this will return a user, and let's console log the user. So let's do it one more time. View fb12@gmail.com, view fb12. So now you can see the user has been logged in the console. So this is basically the object, and we need to which has the user information, additional user info. So we'll persist this user to our store. Okay, in order to do that, let's prepare our store. So what we'll do, we'll have a user key, and we'll initialize this to null, and then write a mutation. I will take state on my user, and then call view.set, and we'll call state here, and then we'll call this user, and we'll do user. Okay, let's add a getter as well. So we'll add a getter, and let's call this as user, and this will return the user. Okay, so it is saying this is expected. Okay, so we have missed a comma here. So let's go ahead and add that. Now everything is working fine. So in order to set this up and call the and update the store, let's open up main.ts. Here the Firebase gives a utility where when the auth changes, we can have on auth state changed. So this will basically give me the user, and now we can call the update user on the store. So we'll call store.commit, and we call use update user, and we'll pass user here. So what will this do is commit the update user to our user state, So in order to see what is happening, let's install a plugin called Vue DevTools. You can find that thing on Vue DevTools plugin, and you can find it on the Google Chrome or Google App Store, and then you can install this plugin. So what this plugin will do is will add this view to your developer console, so you can see various stuff related to Vue. So now we'll click to this and see what is happening. So now you can see, so base state was this, so update user got called, and when you see the payload, this is the payload which we got from Firebase, and we are calling update user on that. Okay, so now when we call this, the user is still undefined. Okay, so what we'll do is we'll try to log in again, Vue fb12@gmail.com, Vue fb12. So let's see what is happening here. So user is undefined, state is also undefined, payload what we got. Deconstruct this and let's see what is happening. So update user is getting called, okay, with this user payload, but somehow this so now the state has been updated, and we can see the getter as well. So whatever we have updated, you can see the state has changed to this now. So I think this is working. So let's go ahead and add routing as well. So what we'll do is add another route. So let's add another route to our router, and let's call it profile. So let's add a file called profile.vue, and let's add p and add a profile. And add this to the router as well. So let's go ahead and quickly copy the register path and replace register with profile. And so this needs to be in lowercase, this needs to be in lowercase. Let's see if it's opening. So now you can see that profile is being loaded. So that is cool. So what we'll do is, so basically add a couple of things here. So what we'll do is, when the user has been logged in, we'll navigate him to the profile page. Also on the successful registration, we'll navigate him to the profile page. So profile page would be our authenticated route. Rest of the routes which are login and register will be unauthenticated routes. So in order to achieve that, we need to apply some mechanism where we guard these routes. So what we'll do is add a guard to this profile, and whenever we go to profile directly, we check the auth state, and if the user has been successfully logged in, then only show this page. Otherwise we'll navigate to the route, which is the login page. So let's start the implementation. Okay, so in order to first we need to, whenever we log in, we need to navigate to this profile page. So in order to achieve that, I'll do a couple of things here. Okay, so we'll add we'll add the computed property as well. So let's add the computed. And what we need to do here is import map getters. So we'll import map getters from Vuex. Okay, so let's use it. In the computed state, the user, and also have a function called next route. This will return the route which we will navigate to later. So I'll explain this later on what is happening. So let's go ahead and add the return statement here. This user is not defined. This needs to be a text. Okay, and let's add a watcher. Okay, so we'll add a watcher to this user. Okay, whenever the user is changing, we'll update the route accordingly. So let's add the watcher. So we'll watch. So we'll watch the user, and if the user is logged in, what we'll do is we'll replace this with the next route. Okay, so what this will do is whenever the logged in state is changing or the user state is changing, we'll take decision. If the auth is there, we'll replace it to the logged in state. So what will this do is, let's have, whenever we go to this login page, it will see that this is already, there's a change in the user state, and this will throw us to the logged in state. Okay, so now what we'll do is we'll also go ahead and add couple of things to profile. So let's add, what we'll do is let's try to put email there and then have a logout button as well. So in order to accomplish that, let's copy some of the code from the login page. So what we'll do is we'll copy this script tag from here. Okay, let's get rid of some stuff. There's no error, so we'll change this to logout and then remove everything here and then do a logout. We don't need this next route. We don't need this as well. We don't need the watcher. We don't need the data. We only need the computed property, which is user. We still need the getter, map getter. We still need the Firebase Auth. So what we'll do is we'll just try to print user here. So now you can see the whole user object has been printed. So let's put email. Okay, so when you see it's there's an email added here, and let's add a logout button as well. So let's do a button, it says logout. So let's add a div tag first. So now we can see the logout button as well. So on press, we'll add this logout function. Okay. So in order to do that, we'll just add the red click and do logout. And let's see if it's working. So I think the user has been logged out. Let's check. Yeah, it seems so. Okay. And when we click the route page, it is taking to the login screen. So now the state of the user is null, which is good. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll again try to log in. So now you're seeing when we log in, we'll take into this profile page. We are seeing the email and we are seeing the logout button. And when we click the logout button, we need to take them back to the logout page. So in order to do that, let's add a guard to this profile route. So what we'll do is we'll go to the router and add a meta tag to it. So whatever path we need to guard, let's add a meta tag to it with auth required. So what we'll do is we'll add a meta and say auth required and make this true. Okay, so as you can see, we have added a meta and say that profile page for a profile page we need to check the auth required as true. For login and register, that is not the case. So for whatever pages which you need to display to the logged in user, you can add this tag. So in order to block the unauthenticated user to reach this page, we'll add before. So we'll add a guard to this router. So router.before each. So before going to each route, this will we'll add some logic to check whether this the auth exists in our state or not, and then we can take the decision accordingly. So this before each takes 3 parameters. One is to, the other one is from, and then it is a next. So we are doing a check whether to match some. This is the route record which we get, and from that route record we can fetch the meta and then auth required. So if the auth is required, we'll check the store if the user is present. The user is not present, we take him to the home screen, and if the user is present, we allow him to proceed. Okay, so let's import store here. So now you can see we have added the guard, and when we refresh this profile page, so what it will do is check. So what happens is when we when we refresh, initially the app is initiated, this auth gets changed, and we do a commit and update the user. So initially the state of the user is undefined. So what will happen is when we refresh, for a moment it is taking me to the login screen because of this thing. Okay, whenever the state has been changed, what it will do, it will check on the login page if we are logged in. So you can see if we had added a function here called next route. So we see that whenever the user is logged in, we fetch the query parameters from it, and then we take the next route and replace the next route. So what will this do is basically, so when you check here, so when we are logged out, we need to change the routing here as well. So what we'll do is we'll just use this for logout. So in profile, we'll add then and replace this with the default. So actually it had logged out. So when you check that, when we click profile, it is adding to the query parameter and it is adding the profile to it. So let's go ahead and try to log in. Vue FB 12@gmail.com, and when we log in and when we do a refresh, you can see it is taking to a login screen, then redirecting me back to the profile page, which is cool. And when we try to open the login page, it is again throwing me to the login state, which is a profile page. And when we log out and go to profile, you can see it is taking me back to the route with setting the redirect parameter as profile. So what we'll do, so what is happening here is in the login page, this is getting picked and the query parameter is getting picked from the path. And then when we log in, the login flow is done. We just replace that thing and land the user to the next route. So I think mostly this is done. Okay, so you can see all the cases are working. When we log in, log out, and when we are in logged out state, try to log in, try to access the profile page, we are getting logged out automatically. So we have added route as well. So this was pretty much it from my side. So if you have any confusion, just add those things in the comment and I'll be happy to take this up. Thank you.